wait for me to, well, if it'll open. One thing that I have noticed, these were originally PowerPoints, but when you put them on Canvas, it reformats them for Canvas slides. And it makes some of the spaces weird. Like it leaves big spaces between, sometimes, I'm not seeing it too much here, but I've seen some other slides where it just makes it look so strange. So if you have trouble reading something, ask me for help, okay? But here we go. We're going to talk about using presentation aids, because for your first two speeches, for your informative speech and your persuasive speech, you have to use a presentation aid. I think on the evaluation form, which I'm not sure I've posted yet, but be looking for that because I'll post it as well. On the back side of it, I think the very last part of the rubric is visual aids. And it'll say visual aids, but visual aids are a type of presentation aids, and it all kind of means the same thing. So don't get confused. I say presentation aids here because not all aids have to be visual, you know, but just offer something that falls into all of this that we're fixing to talk about. There are advantages of using them, and these are the reasons I require you to use them for the first two speeches, because they make what you're saying or the point that you're making clearer. If somebody can see a thing as well as hear a thing, it's going to stick in their mind a lot better. So if you just say something, we may remember it, we may not, but if you can also show it to us and explain it to us, we're going to remember it. So that's a really good reason, and it's clearer, it's more interesting. Right here it says more intriguing, helps the audience remember the point better. It helps add credibility to you as a speaker, because if you have a really nice presentation aid, it just kind of gives you that little edge, you know, it makes you look better. It gives you more trustworthiness because you've done the research to find the pictures that help, or the graphs that you've done, whatever you're using. And for persuasive speeches, it makes your points more convincing, and you're going to want that. There's lots of kinds of visual aids. Objects, that would be the thing itself being discussed, or a close example. For example, I had a girl once who wanted to show us how to saddle a horse. She brought in an actual saddle. Okay. Back when we were doing demonstration speeches, people who wanted to show us how to make things to eat, they would bring the stuff in and make the thing, you know. So you can bring in an actual object, no weapons, you know, don't be bringing in your semi-automatic machine gun or whatever it is and try to show us how all that works. You'll get in trouble, and I don't want that. So no weapons there, but objects are fine. Models, which you can take an object and scale it down so that it's a smaller model, that represent other objects in detail. Large scale, small scale, whatever helps. Photographs are great. People love pictures. They really do. They love looking at pictures. So if you have photos that you can put on a PowerPoint, or that you can lay under the opaque projector up here, you can use all this equipment and use it. My mask keeps slipping. Sorry. It keeps going down here. Okay. But you can use anything that's up here to show your photographs. You know, you can save them in an email and pull your email up and just show us through there, or whatever works for you. As long as they're large enough to be seen by all the listeners at a time, or use the opaque projector to make them big enough. Show the PowerPoint or another multimedia program, but don't pass them around. And now, in our little bitty class sizes, the way they are now, you know, maybe you could, because there's only two of you, and if one of you's speaking, there's only two of us listening, right? So I'm going to go get a chair and listen. So you could probably let us look at them that way, but it's really just much better and more polished if you're not handing them around and if you have them up here with you and you're in control of when we see it. Drawings can be a useful alternative to photographs, but again, they have to be large enough to be easily seen by all the listeners at once, or you can put them on some sort of program that shows them on the screen. They must be really clear. You're going to hear clear an awful lot. Clear is important. That means it makes sense. It's understandable. Graphs. Anytime you use statistics, and we're fixing to go back and talk a little bit about statistics here in a minute, but anytime you use numbers or statistic or trends and patterns or any kind of graphs, putting that on a visual aid is going to help so much, because numbers are really hard to remember correctly when we hear them. But if we see the numbers, we'll remember them correctly, or we have a better likelihood of remembering them correctly. So put your numbers or your statistics on a graph, and probably somewhere in Google Images, they've already made one. And you can just look it up. But some people make their own graphs, and that's fine if you want to make your own. There's line graphs, pie graphs, bar graphs, whatever works for you, whatever helps you make your point. Charts, a visual aid that summarizes a large block of information, usually in list form. Video, you can show us video images. You can go to YouTube and pull it from there, or you can, if it's a home video that you saved on your computer, send it through an email and open it when you get in here and show it to us. Videos are great. Multimedia, where you combine different kinds of visual and audio aids in the same speech, that's fine. You yourself, the speaker, can be a visual aid. Like if you're demonstrating a procedure, like this one woman who showed us how to properly lift something heavy, and how to stretch beforehand, how to bend so you don't hurt your back, where to put your weight so that when you lift you don't strain anything. She showed us with her body how to do that. I've had other people show us a dance step. I want everybody to understand the step ball change. Okay, so she got up here and did a step ball change and showed us how to do that dance element. You can also use your body by wearing a specific outfit or costume that helps. Like I had a girl once who talked about an Olympic sport with horses. You know how sometimes they use horses in these Olympic things. They don't show that too much on TV, but they do have Olympic sports involving horses. And one of them is called dressage, dressage, dressage. It's an Olympic horse-oriented sport. And since she couldn't bring her horse in, obviously, she wore her uniform that you would wear for that event. She had her helmet and her jodhpurs. You know, jodhpurs have those, those things on the sides. And she had a riding crop. And she dressed like she was about to go on with her horse to do the sport. And it was interesting, it was cool, and she explained everything. Another guy gave a speech on fast food, and he wore his Wendy's uniform. And it gave him credibility, because it's like, oh, you actually have the uniform. You know about Wendy's. You've been working there. You can do that. I had a guy who, for his persuasive speech, he tried to convince us all to transfer to Auburn when we were done here. Now, that's not practical. You're either going to do that or you're not. It depends on what your program is, what kind of scholarship you get, what kind of financial aid might be available. Because Auburn, are you serious? I know people who've gone to Auburn, but they paid out the wazoo to go to Auburn. But he wanted to, really convince us that was the school we should go to next, because it's awesome. And so he painted his face half blue and half orange, and sprayed his hair half blue, half orange, wore an Auburn jersey. I mean, he went all the way. All right, you can do that. It was a little bit much, but I mean, you can do that. Do something to your body or with your body to help your words or actions as you make your points. That's fine. Audio aids. You can play music. You can, play different sounds that might go with your points. It just depends on your topic. But some guidelines for using presentation aids. Be sure that they're prepared in advance. Don't just come in here and be sitting here and have your classmate turn to you and say, oh, hey, what'd you bring for your visual aid? And you're like, oh no, I forgot to make a visual aid. Here we go, here's the visual aid is, here, ta-da! And it's just really done at the last minute, and it doesn't help anything. It just kind of completes that part of the assignment and not very well. Think ahead of time. Have it ready ahead of time. Have an idea, and then see it through and practice with it. Practice with your visual aid over and over again. Prepare them in advance. See, first and last thing right there. Prepare them in advance and then practice with them. Keep them simple and neat. If your visual aid is really, really busy, we might miss the point. So make it just deal with the point. Make sure they're large enough for everyone to see. Use fonts that are easy to read. Sometimes people like to really use fancy fonts. And I'm sitting back there going, what does that say? It needs to be nice and clear and simple. It doesn't have to be fancy. Don't go crazy with a different font for every line. I have seen that done, and don't. That's too much. Use color effectively. If you're making it yourself on a poster board, which we have this easel right here, you can set a poster board on if you want to make it at home. But you don't need every color of the rainbow. Just a couple of really good ones that stand out. Keep it simple. See, I keep saying that. Avoid the dry erase board. Why do you think we avoid the dry erase board? What are you looking at if I'm using this? If I'm using the dry erase board, what do you see? My back. That is not interesting. You don't want to look at a person's back. You want to see their face while they're talking to you. So, don't use a dry erase board. It turns your back on the audience, and it's also hard to do while you're speaking. Writing or drawing while you're talking. It's better to do it ahead of time and bring it in with you. Display visual aids where listeners can see them. Avoid passing them around among the audience. A little audience like this one, and this is a very little audience. It probably wouldn't be a big deal. But in a big audience, if you pass something around, by the time it gets to the last person, you've moved on to two or three different points. And they're not going to know what that one even went with. And what are these pictures for? The thing from 5 minutes ago that I forgot. It's just more effective to show everyone at once. So use the board. Use the projector. Display and use your presentation aids only while you're discussing them, because if you leave them up the whole time, we're not going to listen to you. We're just going to look at that. Just look at it. So you got to move it out of the way so it doesn't distract. Talk to the audience, not your visual aid. A lot of folks put their visual aid up there and then they turn and they just look at it and talk about it. Move your face towards us. Look at us. You made the thing. You should know what's up there. You don't have to stare at it. It's okay. Explain your visual aids clearly and concisely, because they don't always speak for themselves. So tell us what it means. Use them where they're needed. Don't tack them on to the end of the speech. Don't get to your concluding device and go, oh yeah, I was going to show you all a couple pictures about point number 1. And so you rush over here and you click, 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 blah, blah, and you're showing us things and we're like, it has to go with it. If you just tack it on to the end, it's not going to have as much meaning or be as helpful. You have to do it where it helps, in the body of the speech. And practice, practice, practice. Okay, that's it for that one. You can turn that one off.